Hey everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an angel therapy practitioner, intuitive astrologer, Reiki master, and empowerment coach. And I'm here today to talk about the full moon in Aries on October 9th, 2022. Before I start that though, just a little bit of business about how this video will what it's based on. I'm doing this by whole sign Western tropical astrology, by rising sign. If you don't know your rising sign, you just need your exact time of birth, and there are free birth calculators all over the internet. You just plug in your information, make sure it's on the whole sign system, and then the first house will be your rising sign. I also think the next most important aspect to look at, or planet, is the moon. The moon represents your emotional body. It represents your intuitive body, self-nurturing. And these new moon and full moon videos directly affect your emotional body. So checking your moon is super important. Then I would go with my sun, which is your natural birthday that everybody celebrates. And then if you have 3 or more personal planets, that's known as a stellium, in one sign or house, this would indicate a strong influence in your personal soul's journey on this planet. If you would like to book an astrology reading with me, either a past life reading, a natal chart, natal and transits chart, my information is below. Or if you'd like to book an angel reading, those are more of an intuitive type reading versus an astrology reading. So let's talk a little bit about this full moon. First of all, a full moon is where the sun and the moon are in opposition. And it is the brightest and most illuminating phase of the moon. And we think of it as the culmination of a cycle that begins at the new moon. The new moon is the darkest phase of the moon, where the moon and the sun have come together and they've planted seeds for this 6-month cycle. So when I was looking at the aspects of this full moon being the culmination of a cycle in Aries, I happen to be an Aries rising, I decided to go back and look and see what was happening at the new moon in Aries on March 31st, 2022, that is Pacific time, 11:24 p.m. It was very interesting to me because the new moon was conjunct Chiron in Aries at 12 degrees and Mercury at 9 degrees. So here we see the new moon at 11 degrees next to Mercury and Chiron. The 11 degree is like the master number 11. It represents our thoughts, and that our thoughts are things and they're manifesting. Chiron represents the wound, the soul's wound. It's the wound that is chronically unhealed, but yet it propels the soul to seek and to explore and to balance it out. And doing so, it's the gift that helps other people. Mercury, for all intents and purposes for this video, is going to represent my thoughts, what I speak about, what I read about, where do I saturate my mind, because that creates a focus. Now, that new moon was in Aries. Aries rules the self and it rules the head. And what is the head? It holds the brain, where Mercury gets all its busyness, where all that busyness is happening. So this is so interesting to me because now, 6 months later, we have a full moon in Aries at 16 degrees Aries, and it is conjunct Chiron. Chiron is at 14 degrees Aries. So somewhere we're seeing a culmination of a cycle that has offered illumination in what we're thinking about, where our focus is, where our dominant mind activity is. And Chiron would represent our ability to see the balance and the wisdom of the journey of the wound and the wound's transformation to the gift. Now we have, the moon and the sun are in opposition. So the moon is in Aries in a full moon cycle. The sun in Libra is conjunct Venus. Venus at 13 degrees, which is a beautiful energy because Venus in this case would represent my self-worth, the permissions I give myself to enjoy a cozy home, to enjoy my own personal voice. Venus rules the singing voice. It rules skills. It rules good food. It rules harmony and diplomacy and balance and compromise. So what we see is this opportunity for there to be an illumination at this time of how I, Aries, assert myself. And I say I, Aries, because this is an Aries cycle. Aries represents the self, how I push myself out into the world. Most times, the first thing you'll hear is Aries is the warrior. Aries is the hero as well. Aries rules brave ones. It rules entrepreneurial spirit. It rules pioneer spirit, adventurism. Yes, it can be combative. It rules gladiators. There is a sense of aggression. There can be anger and resentment. And I think sometimes that anger and resentment might even come from the idea of Aries being misunderstood. So now we see Chiron in Aries, the wound that is focused on the self and how the self projects itself out into the world based on our thoughts. So I think this is a beautiful time when we have an opportunity in this human body to evaluate the fabulously flawed journey and the landmine field that is our mind, and how our mind, it has been given impressions and given experiences that have molded it into a certain way of thinking. And now this full cycle in Aries gives us an opportunity to be a pioneer in going into new territories about that. So now let me talk a little bit about some of the other aspects, because Pluto is making a trine to Mercury at the same time as this full moon. Mercury has just gone direct in Virgo. It will be on the 9th at 28 degrees Virgo, making a harmonious aspect to Pluto, the planet of death and rebirth, planet of transformation, the planet of upheaval, the planet of chaos in some ways. And yet Pluto here is making a harmonious aspect to illuminate, maybe in what has been a 6-month disruptive journey, to allow you an opportunity to see the difference between conscious thought and impressioned thought, or environmental thought, or the thoughts that we have been given. Virgo is ruled by Mercury as well, but it also rules our employment, and it rules where the mind is enslaved to something, to a process, to an agenda, whether it be an employer's agenda or our health. It also rules health. And I believe that our health very much is run by our mental state. So we have this opportunity to really allow the full moon to illuminate the transformation that we have made over the last 6 months. And the transformation does not have to be something where you've gone from one dynamic to another, but rather noticing the process and the continued process of illumination and conscious choice. And sometimes the choice is relatively easy and the mind is already predisposed to allow for a certain amount of abundance or a certain amount of happiness. But we all get to that place where we feel limited. And that's where it gets really transformational, because another thing that's happening during this full moon is that Saturn is entering its shadow period. It is going to go from being retrograde in Aquarius to moving forward. And it will be in October at 18 degrees, making a square to Uranus for the 4th and final time. Thank you. Glad that's almost over, but that's another thing. But I want to offer it this way, because that Saturn is making a trine to the sun in Libra, the sun that is in opposition to the moon. So there is an opportunity to take my history, Saturn, to see the hard work that I've been doing, Saturn, to see myself having built through disruptive experiences, disruptive thoughts in my mind, and now starting to really embrace the journey of polarizing experiences. What appears to be a bad experience ends up being a good experience, a fortuitous experience. Serendipity is another word that comes to mind. The other thing that's nice about this Saturn-Sun trine, Saturn being retrograde at 18 degrees and the Sun being at 16 degrees, is Saturn's exalted in Libra. It's in its most luscious energy. It's where it enjoys the landscape and the vibration of cooperation and diplomacy and fairness and the concepts of Libran harmony and wisdom. So I think this is really playing very nicely into this, the moon being conjunct Chiron, the sun being conjunct Venus. Where have I inadvertently had a wound about maybe my self-worth and my relationships with other people, money, my own prosperity and luxury and viability of my life? Pluto kind of disrupting things in my mind, making me question things or bringing experiences that feel a little bit like the doo-doo that's going to go onto my garden to make it grow. Because the other aspect that is happening during this full moon is the ruler of the full moon, Mars, is in its pre-shadow, which means it's slowing down. And Mars likes to move fast, 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 but it's slowing down because at the end of October, it's going to go retrograde in Gemini. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. So here we're seeing a big theme of the head, how I think, and then how I act, because my actions and my words represent my beliefs. And there's this whole opportunity to, rather than stand in judgment of whatever you deem lack or impatience with your own evolutionary journey, is now getting an opportunity to be in Mars, being in trine with Saturn in Aquarius, 18 degrees in its pre-shadow period before it's about to go forward. So almost within a few days of each other, Saturn will turn direct and Mars will go retrograde. So we have this big theme of Mars being brave to take action and looking at where Mars has influenced our anger, our resentment, where we may have lashed out. And it's really based on old stuff versus an evolved version of ourselves. And rather than judging ourselves, using those experiences as, like I like to refer to it, divine disruption to bring about an illumination that allows for self-acceptance, that allows me to then put that experience where it belongs in my history, so that it becomes a building block for me to create a new future or a new present. This is such a powerful time for us as individuals. October astrologically is extremely powerful and so is November, the whole end of 2022. In fact, the whole year of 2022, Spirit has shown me the theme is the twos, to understand the wisdom of divine disruption, not to look for the human experience to be this sort of floating on clouds thing where there's never any opposition or challenges, but rather to transform those oppositions and challenges into the building blocks that ascend us to greater wisdom, where we see that those moments of unsureness, those moments that we push through, are the moments that create the exhilaration and the wanting to do it again. It's kind of like the total Aries energy. It's like this adrenaline junkie. Oh my God, I didn't think I could do that. And then I gave myself permission not to try to figure out how I was going to do it, but just to stay engaged in the idea that what if I can do it? What if it can happen? What if I have enough momentum to actually start to realize and see in the physical experience that my thoughts are things, and that my thoughts are a focus. And then the focus creates these crossroads, these places where I have to make a choice, and I could choose on what is old and what I know, but I don't really like, but it's safe, that $500 a week paycheck, or jump into something new and to put your chips on yourself and know that it's going to be a roller coaster ride, but every time you go over one of those humps, you feel more empowered and more confident and more resourceful to achieve your goals, to experience your ease. And in that respect, Chiron becomes an amazing healer, because Chiron is representing a journey of ease that is frankly unattainable and not remotely the dynamics of the earth plane. There are other realms in which there is no real contrast, but nobody stays there for very long because frankly, it's boring. So here we go into these crazy dynamics of Pluto, Saturn, the sun and the moon, and Chiron, all making these aspects, offering us this landscape of empowerment as we implement through choice, conscious choice, awareness of our thoughts and our things. And I'm not saying it's an easy choice, although it does get easier the more often you do it. But those first few times, it may feel very uncomfortable. And, that's one step forward, 2 steps back, but it's all about continuing the journey. So I think that's what we're going to see in this full moon in Aries. We are going to see ourselves have this opportunity to review how we've been thinking, the bravery we've displayed in writing a new story, or even being willing to be aware of how much we're telling the old story and how it's not serving us, and then to boldly go where no man has gone before. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be back again soon. Please like, please subscribe, please stay with the channel. I'm still figuring it out here and trying to do the best I can do. If you'd like to book a reading with me, my information is below. Again, my name is Teri Hunter. I'm an angel therapy practitioner, intuitive astrologer, Reiki master, and empowerment coach. And I'll see you soon.